Last November, a mystery like no other unfolded in the tiny town of Menagha, Minnesota.
It began with a seemingly unexplainable murder-suicide. Why would a gentle old man kill his financial planner and then shoot himself? Today, without really answering that question, police announced that they have wrapped up the investigation into that shooting, but the case is far from closed. In fact, it's grown to include cities and counties in the area, even Wisconsin. And that's where the Fox 9 investigators pick up the trail.
Here's Trish Van Pilsen.
You can only push a man so far, even a good man. That's what the family of Carl Albin said after he shot a guy named Mike Callahan, then turned the gun on himself.
Looking back,
oh yeah,
maybe people should have seen it coming. But then that's the kind of thing you can't help but wonder. Only after Mike Callahan lay dead on the kitchen floor and Carl Albin in the garage, his thumb still on the trigger. Yep, they wonder and they speculate.
Mike was an insurance man. That's what he was after, was Carl's money.
It's not like Mike Callahan hadn't pushed people before.
I just think he's a shady character.
But this time,
I don't know why Mike was so foolish.
he tried it with the wrong man.
Probably Mike didn't realize that how Carl strong-minded he was.
In the heat of the moment and in their grief, just lost it and killed him.
Screaming, I cannot get a single word out of her. She's just screaming incoherently.
From here, the story snakes its way through places no one has bothered to check before. A country church, countless pages of courthouse records.
You've uncovered more here than I've heard from the police.
And in the questions that people just don't want to answer.
And I know you wouldn't lie to me because you're a man of God, right?
Carl Albin grew up loving the land, his smokes, and later in life, a woman named Olga. He and Olga both sold their successful farms.
They had a lot of money.
And moved to town together, a place called Menagha, where they kept their place neat as a pin and played the slots in nearby casinos for fun. They had no kids, so why not spend what they had? And into that tidy life came Mike Callahan, who did some good, helped them collect the benefits that older folks are due. But then Mike Callahan did what people are now willing to say he's done to them and their friends, taken their tidy arrangements and messed them up.
My first instinct was that he basically screwed somebody else over. And pardon my language for saying it that way, but
Jenny Uris dealt with Mike Callahan because he handled the estate of family friend Isabella or Bella Sanders.
I'm glad someone's looking into this. It just kind of felt a little sleazy to me. They were like second parents to me.
Sanders left Jenny and her sister 5% of her estate.
I was just tickled that she even remembered me. $50 would have made me happy.
But Mike Callahan got one of the biggest chunks, 15%, more than $73,000. The will says for all Mike Callahan had done for Bella. But in her last days, Bella told Callahan and two close friends she wanted to help pay for a piano at the Park Rapids High School.
She said, how much do you need? I said, well, almost $25,000. And she said, Barbara, I would love to pay the balance.
Mike Callahan said no. He said she couldn't make decisions while she was on medication.
And I said, but Mike, she wasn't on medication.
The piano had already been ordered, so other donors had to step in, and people close to Bella,
she would be heartbroken.
Figure Callahan was merely protecting his share of the estate.
Most of my clients are elderly.
This is the voice of Mike Callahan 4 months before he died. He is telling police about a robbery he discovered at a different client's home. He's not a suspect.
But I will get paid in some way. I know that they have me in their estate. And if something happens to both of them, I will get paid at that point.
We talked to a lot of people who do the kind of work Mike Callahan did, and they see big problems. First, if he was being paid from people's estates, he may not have been paying income tax, And then there's the issue of a conflict of interest. Was he managing estates for his own benefit, not for the client's? But would that make a client angry enough to kill?
Olga passed away a couple days ago.
Which brings us back to the mystery in Menagha.
That's where I understand that she's still screaming that Olga is dead and she needs help.
Carl's will is a testament to his devotion to Olga. He signed it in 2015. Though they never married, he would leave everything to her if he should die first. But it names Mike Callahan as his personal representative if Olga should die first. By this November, Olga was dead. Lung cancer. By all accounts, Carl was devastated. On top of the grief, Carl suffered another indignity. According to the family and funeral home director, Mike Callahan took control of plans for Olga's service, which he limited to a graveside memorial. No flowers, low-cost casket, keep it cheap. That was Callahan's goal. Then, families say Callahan tried to bully Carl into returning a new car he'd recently bought. Why the need to keep Carl from spending? Well, let's go back to his will. With Olga gone, if Carl were to die, Callahan would control all the money. The only instructions? That it be given to organizations or individuals, quote, designated during private conversation with Mike Callahan. In other words, Callahan could have done whatever he wanted with it. The evening before Olga's funeral, Callahan paid a house call to grieving Carl Albin. It would be his last. Hours later, when Callahan didn't return home, his girlfriend and business assistant
911.
Responding, yes, he's screaming incoherently, screaming that she needs help and we need to help her.
Made a frantic 911 call. She'd gone to Carl Albin's house looking for Callahan and found him dead.
Should have realized that it's impossible to get the money that they have.
But Callahan tried, it seemed, even with his own dad. These records show Callahan's siblings even accused him of taking advantage of their own father. A family feud that got so hot, siblings began slinging restraining orders at each other. Police arrested Mike for disorderly conduct after a skirmish with his sister. No charges were filed. In fact, Callahan's elderly dad was with him just before he went to Carl Albin's house. Just before, it seems, he pushed a grieving man just a bit too far.
We got 2 deceased. Gunshot.
A police investigation described what they found in Carl's neat and orderly house. A table set for 2, crumbs on the plate, more than $100,000 cash, 67-year-old Callahan, a single gunshot to the head, and 82-year-old Carl Albin, his handgun, wearing Velcro shoes. Carl's family is going to court to keep Carl and Olga's fortunes from going to Callahan's family now that he is dead. Assets they fear Callahan may have taken from Olga and Carl through fraud, illegal activity, and duress. This story is starting to sound familiar to Marv and Carol Bonds.
Well, I mentioned to Mike Callahan that we didn't have a will.
In 2005, Mike Callahan offered to draw up a living trust for them. Marv didn't want to appear on camera. Their entire estate was supposed to go to their only child. Instead,
it gave all the control to Mike Callahan and left our daughter out.
They wanted to think it was a mistake.
He's a good friend. We've known him for years.
Yes, looking back, maybe there was trouble all along. A couple of hours passed between the time Carl Albin shot Mike Callahan and then turned the gun on himself. It's during that time his family thinks he wrote this note, instructions, to sell his cars, including the one Callahan tried to make him give up, and to give that money to a relative. He finally says what he wants, and they would be his final words.
The Fox 9 investigators expose the riveting mystery in Menagha, Minnesota, and tomorrow that story continues.
He's
He's my very best friend.
If I was a family member, I'd be very concerned.
Do you think it's a conflict of interest to manage the finances of a patient?
Patients should always be aware of what it is they're taking.
He's got control over her, signing papers, checks.
You've uncovered more here than I've heard from the police.
Trish Van Pilsum's special investigation continues tomorrow at 9.